recording. All right, so what I like to do the week one is kind of just, I guess, introduce the course a little bit and kind of try to, you know, uh, ease your nerves just a little bit because this course I know has a little bit of a reputation, but I am here to tell you that you don't need to worry that much. It's there's been a lot of changes to the course, and just to be fully transparent, this is the second term that we've had since the course has actually been completely redone. So, and you'll hear me mention some changes along the way, but just so you know, the feedback from last semester was fantastic. People really like the course, so I enjoy it. I think it's really great. So what I'm going to do this week for our meeting is kind of give a really quick brief overview of the course. We're going to do a real quick database primer. I'm hoping that most people have taken CIT111, but if you haven't, that's completely okay. I like to approach it as if you haven't heard of it before. So that's completely okay if you haven't. If you have, you'll just kind of be a little bit ahead of the curve, and hopefully some things come a little easier for you. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just dive in, because what I like to do is I like to show a little bit just the things that you might want to know before. So the textbook, you can get it for free, the electronic copy. So if you don't mind the electronic copy, you don't need to worry about buying the book. I like both, actually. So I actually have a physical copy here myself. But I also like the electronic copy because it's nice and easy to search for things. So I like to read from the physical copy, though, for some reason. So I like both, but it completely up to you. You do have to, there's some instructions on how to get that from O'Reilly. So you can go through that. I'm sure many of you already have, but just so you know, you don't need to buy it. All right. And then, so the weekly structure. So the nice thing, like most BYU courses, is that there's a set weekly structure where we're going to have the same assignments to do every week. And you can see that by going to modules. But like in every week, week one's a little different because we have a couple extra, like we have our icebreaker discussions and our syllabus quiz. So those are kind of two things that are kind of different. But aside from those, every week you're going to have some preparation and reading. You're going to have an exercise, quiz, and a paper. And so I'm going to kind of go through all these one by one. So first of all, the syllabus quiz, nice and easy. It's just a quiz, kind of I think it asks if you've read the syllabus. It might ask us some specific questions on it. I'm not sure. We can take a look, actually. Let's just preview it here real quick. I'm pretty sure. Okay, so pretty easy questions. It is open book, open notes, so you should do fine on this. But some pretty easy questions just to make sure that you've, I guess, checked out the syllabus, because it is important. So the syllabus quiz should be pretty easy this week. For the discussion board, for the icebreakers, and discussion boards all over. So I don't like to force discussion boards. And one thing that you'll find about me is I actually don't like discussion boards for questions and answers. So make sure you check the announcements, because I'm a big Teams person. And you should have all seen that invite to Teams. Teams is awesome. It works great. And honestly, the quickest way to get a hold of me is through Teams. And the one nice thing that I really like about it, if you just have a generic question somewhere along the way, feel free to ask it in the general channel. And then that way other people can not only see the question and possibly answer it, but they'll also see the answer. So in doing so, we answer it for multiple people. So whenever you see these discussion icebreaker assignments, just know that I also count Teams discussions for that. So someone already asked, hey, is it okay if we start an intro channel on Teams? You've probably seen that pop up. And I've been loving it. So I kind of prefer that, if you will. And so if you do the discussion icebreaker on Teams, that's completely fine. And we can go about it that way. The other thing is on Teams, if you need to ask a question that's a little bit more private, you can also do that with a direct chat to myself. So don't feel free to reach out at any time. Sorry, don't be afraid to reach out at any time because I'm on Teams constantly. So if you need something real quick, even if it's late, just ping me. If it is super, super late, don't hesitate because I put my phone in do not disturb mode when I'm actually checked out. So you don't ever need to worry about interrupting me. So that kind of takes care of those discussion ones. So as far as weekly now, the preparation and reading goes, it's pretty nicely laid out. It just has some reading and it looks like a lot, but really a lot of these are just some simple web pages and some PowerPoints. Now, every week is pretty much going to have a PowerPoint, which makes it nice and easy to kind of get a brief overview. Sorry, my view looks a little different. So you can kind of get, I like to use the PowerPoint as kind of like a summation and also a review. So when you're looking at it for you guys, you know, I would kind of start with the PowerPoint and kind of use it as like a general, hey, let me get kind of scope and context. Then you can kind of deep dive. And then if you ever want to refresh or come back, you can always come back to this PowerPoint. It's really handy. In fact, I use this constantly. Every week I go through this PowerPoint just to review like, okay, what do we cover this week? Which we'll kind of go over a little bit. This one's kind of a bigger one, but we're going to cover a lot of this kind of stuff just to kind of give you an intro here. So the biggest thing this week is that you are going to be installing and setting up MySQL. And I guess just as a background, because someone asked this and I thought it was a great question already. They asked about SQL, like, are we learning SQL? Obviously, they had some goals as to what they wanted to learn or had some incentive to learn SQL. And just so you know, there are many different brands, I guess, of database. There's MySQL, there's Oracle, there's Microsoft SQL Server, Postgres, MariaDB. There's lots of different ones that are all based on SQL. And in this class, we're going to be learning SQL, just like our book says, it says learning SQL. And we're just going to choose a specific tool to do it. Just like, you know, you can learn how to cut wood with a saw. It doesn't matter if it's DeWalt or what's another brand, Hitachi or, you know, whatever. You learn how to cut the wood. Now, there are some differences in like where the buttons are, but for the most part, you can grab someone else's tool and go right ahead and do it. So that's what you'll learn is that you're going to learn SQL using MySQL, but you can, as far as potential opportunity in the future, you can go out and kind of seek employment with anyone who uses a SQL database after this course. Just so you know, like in my experience, I have used the whole gamut. I use, in my old job, I used Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle, Postgres, and MySQL. So I used all of them, and currently I use MySQL, Postgres mostly, a little less on the SQL Server, but you can jump between them pretty easy. There's just some minor differences in certain parts of it, but SQL is actually a standard. So once you learn SQL, for the most part, it's pretty uniform across everywhere. So you can kind of use it. Just real quick, and you can feel free to shoot it in chat or unmute yourself. Has anyone, how many of you have successfully installed MySQL already for this course? Some of you may have already had it before, which is completely fine. I know I've gotten some questions about it. Okay, so it looks like there's definitely some people that have installed already. So that process should be pretty straightforward. It's not too crazy. And really that's as far as the setup goes, which is really nice. It's pretty easy. And I'm going to walk you through some things because some of the biggest challenges or hiccups you might have are with command line. So like someone just said, I didn't have command line part, but I have done that now. I'm going to show you a little shortcut just to make that step easier. And so that way you can get into it. So as I was I'm going to, oh, go ahead.
Can we ask questions or wait until the end? Sorry.
Feel free to ask questions. If you want, you can either throw them in chat or I think you can raise your hand somewhere.
Well, since that I interrupted you already, so I apologize. I
Oh no,
think that
you're good.
my doubts was with the databases themselves. So the PowerPoint points to one database, a student, and then in reading the material, there is a Satica, another. So I'm unsure as to. So I guess I have both, but I wasn't sure which database to use.
Yeah, and basically we can create lots of different databases. So it might have had you create one, but for the majority of the class, we're actually going to be using this demo data that's in Sequila. And the reason we do that is because it's kind of like a pre-made database already. So that way we can start kind of using it. It's already kind of there for us. So good question. And if you want to shoot me a direct note to where that's referenced, then I can probably give you some more insight into that or get it fixed if it is in error. All right, so I'm going to jump right in. So I've already installed MySQL, and I have some different connections here. This is the one I'm going to be using. So I kind of have mine set up for student. I kind of, whoops, let's try it again. I probably just typoed that wrong. There we go. So here you can see that I am now connected to the Sequila database. And this is using the GUI. So a big part of the work this week in the paper is you'll find that there are some graphical user interface. And so if I say GUI, that's what I mean. I mean like a graphical user interface, meaning there's buttons, you can use your mouse to click on things. And then it compares that to the command line. So the easiest way that I found to get to the command line is you can right click on your connection and then come down here where it says start command line client, and it will actually pop open a window here where you can type in your password and you can just go ahead and start issuing your commands. So real quick, the first thing we want to do is say use Sequila. That's our database. Let's see what other databases we have here. We can type show databases, and we actually only have one. We have Sequila, so that makes it nice and easy. So we are going to use Sequila, and that's how we kind of set our database to the one we want to use. And from there, I'm going to say show tables, and we can see what kind of tables in there. And we're going to have a lot of discussion about this, so don't worry too much. It's also heavily documented. Basically, their whole work this week is to kind of get familiar with all this stuff, kind of wrap your head around the main concept behind what we're going to learn in the class and be ready. So you don't need to worry too much about like, oh, I don't know how to run this command or whatever. That's completely normal. So there's the command line. And you can see that when I run the command line, if I want to do certain things, I can't go back and edit something in the past, so on and so forth. The command line, if you're not familiar with command line, is pretty much just keyboard only. You can copy and paste certain things if you right click here and go edit, copy, paste, whatever. But really, for the most part, it's all commands with the keyboard. So if I want to show what databases I have, I can do show databases and hit enter. Show databases. There we go. And hit enter. And that's how we run our command. Same thing, I can show what kind of tables do I have. And we can see the different tables there. So, and this is, I'm kind of going to give you some hints here to reference in your paper because it talks about efficiency between command line interface and the graphical user interface. And just as a disclaimer, I actually use both. So I've been in this field for a while. I know lots of people who work in the field, and honestly, there's not one right answer. And honestly, I don't think that I don't think you should have to choose one or the other. I think it could be both. And I think especially for beginners, the GUI is actually really, really nice. And I'm going to show you why. So in here, just to see like show tables and stuff, you kind of had to know what command that was. Well, as soon as I log into the GUI, you can see that I have a lot of this stuff over here on the side. And these are my tables. So all my tables here are are just like Excel spreadsheets. So if you're not familiar with databases, a table is just like an Excel spreadsheet. And just to kind of show you that, we're going to see what's in film. And so inside of our film table, you can actually see what we have, just films. We have movies, and these movies have quite a bit of stuff. We have a title, a description, a release year, a language, and you'll find that a lot of these names are completely just made up. So if they don't sound super super relatable, it's because a lot of them are just kind of fabricated, so they're just kind of made up. But you can see how we have a rental rate, the replacement cost of the film, and the length. So just in case you haven't gathered, a big part of our database is actually kind of running like a movie rental store. So that's kind of what this fake data is based off of, and it's actually the demo database that comes with MySQL by default. So that's kind of the history behind it. But you can see that a table is just like any spreadsheet that you've used before. It's got columns and it's got rows, and the columns are different qualifiers, basically. What do they call them? If you're familiar with programming, like objects, they're attributes. So every record can have a given value and an attribute. Pretty standard stuff. So as far as this side of the database goes, it's not too complicated. I hope we've all seen tables before. Now, where we're going to kind of dive in and learn about is that, and this is going to be further down the road, so I'm just trying to give you an overview, because I constantly get asked, well, what's the difference between, why would I use a database when I can just open up an Excel spreadsheet? And there's lots of reasons, but one of the biggest things I like to always show people is how they connect. So we have this film here, our film table, right? And we also, if we look over here, we have this actor table. So I'm just going to real quick just run this, and you can see that we have a lot of actors in here. And then if we look, we have this other table called film actor. So what's interesting is we actually have 3 different tables that kind of all have things. Well, let's say we want to see, okay, what actors are in which film. So this is just a demo. I'm just trying to show you why we use databases. So I'm going to start off by selecting data, and you'll learn about these very soon in the coming weeks. Is some basic select statements. So if I wanted to see a film actor, let's say we want the film from film. So let's just get the up in its title. So I just want to see the title of the movie. Now what we want to do is we want to see the film actors. So basically what makes a database really handy is that we can connect data. Data can become related. So if we take a look at this, we can actually see the title of the movie. Let's get the film actor ID. We'll just do a little show here. Because one thing, I'm sure that some of you have probably done this before, is you've probably done VLOOKUPs in Excel, and you know how big of a pain that is. Sometimes it's not so bad, sometimes it's really bad. But that's kind of like the concept behind this, right? So I have a table called film that has all this information, and you'll notice that there's no actor information here at all. It's just completely film data. And then if we look at film actor, you'll notice that we have a film ID and an actor ID. And then in actor, we actually have the actors' names. So we kind of want to get to that film actor, or the actor information. So basically what I'm doing here is I am just going to connect our tables up in a certain specified way to get to that information. So now that I've connected it all, we should be able to get our information. Let's get the actor first name and last name. And so now we can see all of our movies and the different actors in them. So one of the things I like to demo is like in this case, some movies have many actors and some movies have fewer. And so, you know, if we were doing this in one Excel spreadsheet, we would have to have multiple columns to say like actor 1, actor 2, actor 3, actor 4, and some of them are empty. Do we have enough? So on and so forth. So what's nice is this way we can connect it all dynamically too, which is a benefit in and of itself. But we can have an infinite number of connected sets of data. Like in this case, Academy Dinosaur has multiple actors. Ace Goldfinger has a Chris Depp and Nick Wahlberg. Or no, that's Adaptation Holes. So I was going to say that's a lot of talent in one movie. The long lost stepchild of Johnny Depp and the long lost stepchild of Wahlberg. So, like I said, you'll laugh at the names because it's kind of I'm guessing they kind of randomly generated this based on some other data to kind of fabricate it. But, anyways, so that's why we use databases. There's a lot of power here. They're really fast because, you know, we don't have a lot of data in here, but you can imagine what it's like to be Facebook or Google, you know, that are handling millions and millions of rows. So where I currently work, we have data sets with like 15 million rows in one table. So you can imagine, like, you know, the amount of processing and power it takes to do a lot of that kind of stuff. And, you know, people like Facebook are probably even larger, where, you know, they have to be efficient because they're pulling a lot of data, and data is everywhere now, which I guess leads me to this class. This class is going to be really nice because almost anymore data is required everywhere from accounting to if you're planning on being a developer, at some point you're going to touch a database. If you're going to be a system administrator just working in IT, odds are you're going to have to deal with databases in some way, sense, or fashion. And then even if you don't plan on doing that, if you just plan on being a UI developer or something similar, there's some really nice concepts about databases and organizing data that are really applicable to everywhere. So anyways, that's kind of a brief overview of this, and feel free to explore because honestly, if you break something, we can always fix it. So don't be too afraid. The other thing I want to show you is some of these quality of life things. So because we could run that same script inside of command line. So just to show you real quick, let's go ahead and paste this here. Maybe. I think if we, nope. Did I copy it? Copy. Paste, there we go. So we can run this here up, and apparently I did something wrong. Let's see. Oh, it didn't look like it. It doesn't look like it didn't like something.
No space between there.
Yeah. It doesn't like my returns apparently when I copy. Thank you. There we go. So there's the same results in command line. You can see that it is a little bit different in the way that it works. And so those are some things you might want to highlight in your paper, which we'll talk about the paper here in just a minute when this finishes. There we go. All right, and the other thing that I kind of want to show you is one nice thing about the GUI is that you can actually, you can do a lot of really nice things here. So like we clicked this little lightning to kind of select everything from it. But the other thing we can do is we can also kind of see the columns in this table and some information about them. So we can see that like first name is in the actor table is a varchar, which is a string. Last name is a varchar, and it's a string that allows 45 characters each. And then last update is a timestamp. If we take a look at film, we can see there's a little bit more columns here. Like description is text, which is like a long text data type. Release year is a year. Ints, which are just kind of numbers, smaller numbers. Rental rate is a decimal with precision of 4.2, so really good for money. Replacement cost is 5.2, which is, again is for money, so on and so forth. So you can also do this in command line. So if we type describe film, we can kind of see a lot of that same information in this view from command prompt by using the describe command. And so you can kind of see all the same information, just a little bit different view. All right, and then the last thing you can do, which is really handy, is if you right click on this, you can send to SQL editor. This is a really nice tip. If you wanted to kind of make like a copy of this table, but have it called something different with some minor changes, you can, where did it go? Oh, there it is, send to SQL editor, and we can do the create statement. So if I click this, we actually have the code that it would take to make this table. So then if you wanted to reverse engineer or recreate this, you could do so pretty easy. Let's not save you. Let's close you, close you. All right. So that's kind of a brief overview that I kind of wanted to hit that should kind of help you get going. Does that populate the data too? No, it would not. But I actually, there's some scripts. You can actually go download the Sequila scripts. Or if you wanted to make some minor changes, you can actually insert the data from other tables, which we'll cover later. But if you ever lose your data, if you ever accidentally delete some data, we can get it back. There's some scripts. Basically, we can just rerun the Sequila scripts and it'll recreate it. So no worries there. All right. Let's take a look at our module 1 again. So anyways, that's preparation and reading. I kind of wanted to give you a quick intro also to kind of just where the class is going to be, what we're going to learn, what we're going to do. And so now we'll talk more about the weekly assignments again. So the exercise, every week you're going to have an exercises, and what these exercises are is they're, again, open book, open notes. It's actually, they vary. Some of them are multiple choice. Some of them are basically type in a response. Some of them I have to grade. Some of them are obviously multiple choice or graded themselves. But every week it's going to differ a little bit. Sometimes you'll have to just like write a little snippet. This one looks pretty easy. It just asks you, did you install the MySQL database management system? Did you create the student user account? It just basically asks if you're all set up. So that one's going to be pretty easy, pretty straightforward. But just to give you an example of one in the future, I'm going to go down to like week 6. We'll just pick a random one. And some of these, it's going, oh, that's not what I wanted. We're going to preview it. Where's our joins? Working with sets. Here we go. Let's take a look at this one. This one will be a good example. So let's preview this one. And here you can see it says like, oh, here's like, here's a query, fill in the blanks. Write the query that would query this data, which is actually based on our Sequila stuff. So you can actually write this, try it out, and get it. So there are some that are multiple choice. There's some that are like kind of an exercise. And just so you know, these you can redo. So like I'll grade these, and if like there's something wrong, And to be honest, most of the time what happens is if it's something small, I just let you know. But if it's something big, like some big understanding, I'll have you actually redo it to get your points. And most of that, to me, this exercise is really just to check to make sure, like, okay, are they getting it? This is your chance to kind of like practice it and show that you got it, show that you tried it. And that's kind of the way I view it. So you'll either get all your points the first time, or I'll say, hey, it looks like you have some misunderstanding here. Here's how it actually works. And you can actually redo it for your full points. So no worries there. You'll be able to redo these exercises till you get it right, essentially. And so on that note, the sooner you get it done, the sooner you can kind of move on in case there are issues. Most of the time, there's not too many issues, though, to be honest. All right, and then the quiz. The quiz is just like a reading quiz. And again, it's open book, open note. So it's just basically a chapter review or whatever we read. If there's multiple chapters, most time I think it's just a single chapter at a time. But most of the time, it just comes off the reading, whether it's the PowerPoint, the web pages that are listed, or the book. But it is open book, open note, open internet, so you can kind of go through those quizzes, and that'll be good. Then the last thing I wanted to talk about is the paper, because the paper is kind of like, I guess, where the bulk of your workload will be, is doing this paper. And it doesn't necessarily have to be. To me, what I really like about the way that this course is designed is it's kind of all conducive. So when you get to the paper, what I would do is throughout all your throughout weeks, what I would do is the first thing I would do is go look at the paper. And they kind of give this little scenario. And mainly I would look at the purpose and then kind of the case study. So the purpose is learn how to install, configure, and use the MySQL database with the command line interface tool. And then it says you should return and report with a 3 to 5 paragraph report that clearly explains why using the MySQL command line shell presents advantages that translate to productivity, and the difference between using IDE or GUI, like Workbench is an IDE, integrated development something. So environment, integrated development environment, and then command line interface. And this paper should qualify what you learn about experimenting with the technology. So just so you know, this is 3 to 5 paragraphs, and it doesn't have to be anything too crazy. One thing that I will say that makes a big difference, and what I would do to kind of help flesh out your paper is take some screenshots along the way. So, if it were me and I wanted to kind of show this, I would say, you can take some screenshots. Like I wanted to see what the film table was like. So you could take a screenshot of this right here where I said describe film. And then I did the same thing in here. And I liked this one better because, or I disliked this one because, or whatever, So along the way, you can kind of take some screenshots, take some code snippets, whatever, and kind of go along the way to kind of build your paper. So essentially what I would do is, what I'm saying is, I would essentially be writing, or at least wireframing your paper along the way. And they don't need to be anything crazy. I have had students that go far above and beyond like what this is. And if you want to, and you have the time, that's great. But I'm also here to say that you're going to get your full points if you just do what's expected. So if you write 3 to 5 paragraphs that quantify your understanding, and you have some screenshots to kind of back it up, and say you did it, or some diagrams, or, you can even just kind of cite like your research and your experience, you're going to get your points. So you don't need to go above and beyond and spend tons and tons of time on this paper. It can just be really quick. And Ashley, you said you have a question about the paper.
Yeah, thanks, if you don't mind. So just to clarify, the paragraph should be kind of a summary of what we've learned, or is it answering the case study? Is it saying, in this scenario, I would do this for my employer? Or is it more just, this is what I've learned this week, and here's an example of how I learned that?
it's mostly about what you've learned. They kind of put it into like this scenario thing. And I think the idea is that a lot of this is like following as if you were working, which to me it doesn't quite fit all the time. But really it's about what you learn. So like you can kind of choose to, like when I kind of do this, you can see that I kind of skipped like a lot of this stuff. I mean, and I would read it so you can kind of get some context, because really they kind of just give you some hints or maybe some ideas about where to go from here. But really the bulk of like what is it asking of you is in this bottom paragraph. So I kind of take the scenario with like a grain of salt necessarily. Like I don't really play into that too much. To me, it's like, okay, what did you learn this week? And as it relates to the prompt. And what I really like about this, just so you know where this is coming from, most graduate programs kind of run on this kind of same methodology. And what's really nice about it, what I learned from last term from my own master's degree, is that it's really interesting how, which is good, two people come up with two different answers, which is completely fine. Like in this case, what do you like better, the IDE or the command line interface, or what are advantages and disadvantages to both? You know, and everyone has different answers, and that's okay. And some weeks, like some prompts, there is maybe one right answer, but two people approach it two complete different ways, and that's fine. You know, maybe we all have different learning styles. You know, I'm the type that I kind of like to just dive in and start goofing around with stuff. And so for me, like that's kind of what I do. But I also know there's a lot of people that like to go straight to like the technical documentation. You know, so maybe there's some people who like to dive into the book first. You know, so on and so forth. And so what I like about this is it lets you drive your own education in a way, in your own way. And I think it also helps you internally connect the dots yourself a little bit better, because it's not just like, oh, here's a quiz, take the quiz and on your way. This kind of the critical thinking part of it, like, oh, I did this. Why did I do this? And oh, what does this do? Maybe I'll research that and put in my paper, sort of thing. So yes, it's more about documenting in the context of the prompt what you learned, how you got there, and like any cool evidence you found along the way. So like for me, if I was writing my paper, I'd say, you know, the command line interface is nice because it's fast, and you know, I can get data that I need really quickly. For example, when I want to see metadata about a table, or I want to see what columns are in a table and the data types, I can run describe film and get it really quickly. However, I can do the same thing in the IDE, but one nice thing about the IDE is that it displays a little nicer, and if I want to make any changes to the table there, I could. Or, oh, I don't have to know the command, or I can see all the tables really easy in the IDE, and I don't have to keep running commands and scrolling around, you know, those kind of things. And you can take some screenshots to kind of show like, oh, you know, this is how it looks in the command line versus this is how it looks in the IDE. So, you know, that's a good example. You know, you could take a screenshot of this, take a screenshot of that, kind of show side-by-side comparison and say, hey, you know, this isn't just me, like, in my opinion, you know, or it is my opinion, but like, here's some evidence to back it up. So, and like I said, I don't need it to get too crazy, to like, don't overthink it too much. I would just kind of along the way, because as you're doing this, you're probably going to run into some things when you're going through the reading. You know, maybe you want to try something. That's what I would recommend, is just try maybe a couple things from the reading and throw in your screenshots and the results. And even if it's a complete failure, all right. So like, let's say that, oh, like one of the reasons why I like the command line or the IDE better is that when I'm editing a select statement, I can use my mouse and fix big queries better, you know, and I could take a screenshot of how I copied that in and it failed, right? Like I could run this and say, you know, this is one reason why I like the IDE better, which, you know, just from my experience right now is one thing that I'd probably put in that paper. Because like I can't go back and just click this and just like now I was trying to scroll up to find the last query I ran on the IDE. It's super easy because it runs in two different panes, right? Like I can just go here and run it. And here's my results. Here's my query. I can make edits willy-nilly. It's not that way on the command line. So there are pros and cons to both. And yeah, for me, it's more interesting just to see like what you come across, what you highlight. Cause those are little annoyances that I would bring up. And I also have little annoyances with the graphical user interface. Like you have to know what all these buttons mean and do. And for me, sometimes it's much faster to go straight to the server. The other thing is many servers you connect to remotely. So like, here's a good example. I have a server right here that I'm connected to, and I can show my databases right here, but I don't have, I could connect to here, but sometimes you just need to go in and fix something real fast. And so it's much easier just to jump in on command line and do that. So there's pros and cons, and you'll read about it, and it'll be good. So, and just so you know, we have the paper this week that is, I'm going to have everybody kind of do the case study. But in the future, which kind of leads me to my last point, is in this course, we have a final project option. And let me go there just so we can see it. Week 13. Final course option. Maybe it's not in yet. I know that it's coming. But there is a final project option that works really well. And maybe they took it out. I'll have to look. So we'll hold off on that. So for now, like I said, I like everyone to do the first paper anyways, just to kind of get a feel for it. So I'll keep you updated on the final course or on the final project. And last term we had a final project option that was really cool. And I think that's still going to be there, but I'll double check. Which basically you could do a final project instead of the final quiz. Let's see, we got some questions coming in. Ah, yes, thank you. Perfect. Thank you. So the final options. So you can either take the final exam or you can do a final project. And the final project is, it is a little intensive, and it's something that you'll need to be working on. And I usually started around week 3 as well. I actually introduced it earlier in case you want to. But the final project, yes, I was right. It is in week 13. For some reason it's just not on there. But anyways, the final project is quite big, and you can do it instead of the final exam. But it takes a lot of work, and it's something that you'll want to be building along the way. And basically, I'm going to evaluate, but starting in either week 2 or 3, I'm going to, instead of the paper, if you're doing the final course project, I will have a different prompt for you, and it'll be in the instructions, so it'll be clear, but you'll have a different prompt if you're doing the final course project and you want to write on that instead of the prompt there. So just so you know, keep that in mind. Basically, the final project is you can design and develop a database for whatever kind of purpose you want. Now, there's specific requirements around how many tables you need, like 12. But just to give you some examples of what people did last term, there was one student who made a database that would power a soap store website. There was another student who developed a website, or designed a database that would power music lesson reservation type stuff. So lots of different ideas. You can kind of do whatever you want. And we'll have more about that in the future. But if you kind of have some ideas of like something cool you'd like to build, this is a great time to do it, because you'll get, it'll be part of your coursework, and it'll be fun. I think that's the best way to learn, is to kind of have an idea, something you want to do, and that kind of thing. Now, the only thing I'll say is, like, scope of this can grow, it can shrink. So if you're like the type that, like, oh, I'm very, very limited on time, and you're not quite sure how to go about it. Maybe you want to do just the final test option, but the nice thing is you can always change your mind, no problem. So it's not like you need to commit at any point. But something you might want to start thinking about is like, oh, do I have any ideas of something that I'd want to build? Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, and another question. I created the student user account, but I am not sure how to change to use from it. Are we supposed to? Really, you don't have to. If you're already connected to your database, you're good. Really, that whole process is just to kind of show you how to walk you through how to create a user in case you want to or need to. Best practice is that you don't use the root user for your day-to-day stuff, but we're learning, right? And so I don't care that much. But you do know how to create a user, you know how to grant them permissions and that kind of stuff. So that's good. Next, I took the quiz and it said I had 90 minutes, but inside it said unlimited. Let me know. I'll take a look at that. Yeah, because I can make that match whatever the instructions say or whatever that it says on the thing. Or whatever. Or if I go with the most lax. So if it says if you should have unlimited, but you only have 90, I'll switch it to unlimited. But if it's the other way around, we can keep going. Is there any way to see what I got wrong? So eventually you'll be able to see the wrong questions. I'm trying to remember what it was decided on that. I'll take a look at that as well. I know the results are turned off because there's been quite a stint of cheating in this course. So there's been some hesitation around there. But I am open to making some adjustments to that based on time and stuff like that. All right, and Aldo, you asked about the preparation and reading. I believe we already talked about that, but each week it's just a list of kind of stuff to read or review. And I'll go over it again. Basically, week 1 seems kind of heavy, but it's just a lot of like kind of website getting prepared kind of stuff. Let me go into like week 3. This one will be a lot easier. Basically, every week there's going to be a PowerPoint that's kind of like a nice little summary. So that's kind of where I would start. And then you can kind of dive into some of the other references. So, and a lot of these are just websites, right? And a lot of them are kind of like some more specific documentation type stuff. And so you don't have to necessarily commit all this to memory. It's more there for reference. So what I would do is I would kind of use the PowerPoint slide as a guide. So I would read the paper, find out what they're looking for in the paper, do the PowerPoint, and let the PowerPoint kind of drive how I explore from that into the book. You know, so I would look at the PowerPoint, then I would start reading the chapter 9, and then oh, go ahead.
Please accept my apologies. I didn't mean to say what I said. My brain is not functioning. I meant to ask about the help each other and devotional. That's what I meant to ask.
Oh, gotcha.
I don't know how I can go from one to the other. I have no idea how my brain operated there, but that's what I meant to ask. I apologize.
Oh, no, you're good. So yeah, the discussion board and help one another in devotional, that will all be in Teams for the most part. If you don't want to use Teams, like you can do this. And honestly, I'm not really big on pushing a lot of this. And so really to me, this is kind of like, it's kind of just there. So, you know, the devotional type stuff you can do. I prefer to do it all in Teams. I'll take it from either place. And I also don't like force you to do it. And you can see that this discussion board isn't graded. So it's kind of more like at will. And I hope that everyone kind of takes advantage of that at some point. But really to me, like I like Teams because it's all there. But if you prefer to do the discussion board, that's great as well. But Teams is pushed as the main communication platform. But none of it is graded or forced. So no worries there.
Thanks.
And then the final exam. So on the final, you have two options. You'll have either the final exam or the final project. So you have two options, and you can kind of just pick and choose. If you're going to do the final course project, you'll want to start on it early. So it's not like you can put off the final project until week 12 or 13 and then say, oh, I don't want to take the test and start doing the assignment. You know, unless you can commit like hours and hours to it, then you might be able to pull it off. But for the most part, you'll want to decide earlier. And what I would say is start on the final project. And if you get to the point where you just get lost, don't have time or whatever, then you can kind of use the final exam as your last option. But yeah, I will say that, you know, the final project is probably going to be more lenient on grading because the deliverables are very clear. And so you can provide those pretty easy, because as long as you meet all the deliverables and the rubric is there, you can essentially grade yourself and know exactly what you're going to get before it even gets graded by me. So that's why I like the final course project, is because I think you'll learn more, and I think it's better for you grade wise. But this is there. So honestly, I was a little surprised last term. I had most students actually take the exam. But it was good. Pretty much typical exam scores is what is typical. We had tons of 90 to 100%, you know, tons in the 80% range, fewer in the 70, and, you know, so on and so forth. I don't think anyone failed it, to be honest. So it's
I
not
think
too
I will
terrible.
favor the project, but is it open book, closed book, open note, closed note?
Yep. So the quiz is open book, and by open book, that's also open note as well. So
The final exam, I meant.
yep.
Okay.
Yep. Should be good. So
All right. Thank you.
yeah, no problem. All right. Multiple choice, no coding. Yep. It is all multiple choice, no coding. Basically, and really what it is it's 70 questions, and it has 5 questions from each weekly quiz bank. So it's basically just a big culmination of the quizzes you take throughout the term in each week. So it shouldn't be anything new and crazy. It should all be there. It'd be pretty straightforward. All right. Good questions. I feel like I've probably loaded you full of stuff. So does anyone have any other questions about general class structure? And just, you know, if you run into any technical issues along the way, feel free just to hit me up on Teams or shoot it in the general chat. Odds are someone else has come across it or will come across it. So don't feel like you're a one-off, because it'll happen. So, oh, and then our quizzes and exams proctored. So the way that works is there are some that are and some that aren't. And it will say on there, let's take a look. Some are and some aren't, I'm pretty sure. That's where it used to say on here if they were. Let's take a look here. Some are and some aren't. I will say that much. I want to say week 6 was maybe. It'll say, yeah, okay, so here's one. So week 6 is one that is. So some are and some aren't, unfortunately. I know that there are many frustrations with the proctored exams, but it is a requirement that we have. So some are, some aren't. The nice thing is it's not every week. So not every week is a proctored exam.
So my understanding is that there's a lot of restrictions. You know, I've heard some people like you cannot drink water, you cannot go to the bathroom. Sure, but if the quizzes are open book, right? Then how does that work? You know, if I guess you're supposed to keep your eyes on the screen, but if it is open book and open note, and if you're consulting something, I don't know how proctor exams or quizzes work because I've never taken before, so I have no idea. But I guess I would be curious to know.
Yeah, so basically there's certain settings that we can make on our end. So like, for example, for these quizzes, we let you have like other tabs open or other browser windows. So that there's like all those things. So basically a lot of those restrictions, I guess you could call them, are passed from us to Proctorio. And these ones are very lenient because it is open book. So yeah, you don't need to worry too much about it, to be honest.
Okay, that answers it. Thank you.
From my experience last semester, a lot of the students said, well, why do we even use Proctorio? Because just like you said, it's open book. And I don't have an answer for that. I know it's required to be in the course. So that's why it's there. But for the most part, like I have gotten reports like, oh, this student had another browser window open. I'm like, yeah, that we have that in the test to let them. So just, I get those reports, but you're not going to get dinged over or anything because it is open book. You have 2 attempts, it is what it is.
And it is my experience that actually open book and open notes tests or exams or whatever, they tend to be harder because, the questions are more tricky, which would require you to, pay extra attention rather than otherwise. So
yeah,
anyhow.
That's correct. So yeah, these are a little bit more like you'll have to work for them just a little bit harder. And what I will say is pay close attention, because our brains all do it. You'll read something and because I get it, your brain does something, you think like, oh, why doesn't this count? And and it's oh, well, you read the question backwards or whatever, stuff like that. So you do get 2 attempts though. You might get the same questions, you might not. So yeah, it's I think it's pretty fair. And yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about the Proctorio thing. You need it to work, but which means you have to have Google Chrome and you have to have all the Proctorio stuff set up. But I'm guessing it's probably you probably already have it for other courses. So hopefully everyone's set up. But so yeah. Yeah, so I think that proctoring, test quiz proctoring is kind of a thing that kind of hit everywhere. So yeah, that's why it's there, which is good, I guess. Hopefully you don't have any technical difficulties though. It actually, I think, went pretty well. So yeah, Emily said I used Proctorio last term, had no issues. So yeah, I've heard some good things and some bad. We do have a TA. So I just they just both emailed me today, because we actually have 2 sections here. So we're actually I like to just combine everybody up into like this kind of stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to in Teams, and you'll also see probably something from them. But basically, there's going to be 2 TAs in the course, and you'll kind of be assigned to one. So just to kind of make sure there's even workload between the 2 TAs. So there's going to be 2 TAs. You'll be assigned to one. You'll see that in Teams and also in Canvas. So they'll be sending out an announcement in Canvas. They'll be sending out something in Teams. And I'm still kind of messing with Teams to kind of figure out the best way to kind of arrange that. What I'm thinking I might do is I might actually just make 2 additional channels, or it'll be a tags, and I'll provide some further instruction on how to best contact them, and they'll also be reaching out. So there will be TAs, and one of the TAs I had last term, and he's fantastic. Most of the time they like to set up a weekly kind of meeting, and I let them know that I do this one. So I try to encourage them to do one later. So that way it's like, okay, Tuesday I watch the meeting. Hopefully you try to do some work Wednesday, Thursday, and maybe Friday they kind of have like another kind of session where you can come ask questions, get any help, sort of thing. So, and they're always in teams and stuff like that. So good question. There are TAs, still getting it set up, but they should be reaching out here in the next day or 2 for sure. Yeah, so if you need help with the weekly work, the best thing to do, like I've said, is shoot a note on Teams. And then most of the time I can answer it or someone else. Like sometimes people beat me to it. The TAs can also reach out. Like I said, that's the best way. And what I like about Teams is if you get stuck somewhere along the way, you're not waiting on help. That's like the biggest thing to me, because I've been there. I've been an online student, and most of the time you set aside like an hour block to kind of get a certain hourly block to get your work done. And the last thing you need is to like get 15 minutes into your session and be stuck, and then you kind of wasted all your set aside time. Because I know what it's like to be working and do school and all that. So basically my goal with Teams is to get you help as quickly as possible so you're not stuck. So the best way to shoot on Teams, or if they're a direct message, that's options one. If you need something else, shoot me an email. That's probably the next often thing I check. You can always shoot a message on Canvas or whatever, but I don't really like the Canvas messaging because you can't like add attachments really well and screenshots and code snippets and stuff like that. So that's why I prefer Teams first, second email. And yeah, most of the time we can get you going. And like I said, the TAs will probably have like a work session, and so on and so forth. And also I'll be trying to put out some videos, some smaller tidbits, because I'll produce this recording. But my goal this semester is also to produce some smaller bite-sized 5-minute videos that you can hopefully watch to kind of get more in-depth knowledge on some things. That's kind of my own personal goal. So hopefully I can make that happen. All right. So yeah, there should be plenty of opportunity for help. All right, and we've hit the hour mark. So does anyone else have any other questions or concerns? Anything you're nervous about that I can hopefully dispel some fear? Because again, I just want you to know, like, I'm pretty relaxed. And the way that I kind of view the course, and I guess I'll end on this note, is I really like to run this course as if it were just in the professional business world, right? So my expectation is I'm super lenient if you're going to turn in something late, but try to let me know beforehand. And I get emergencies, but but obviously I'm going to be less lenient on if it's 3 days later and whatever, and obviously I don't if there's an emergency, I don't expect you to first thing to think like, oh, I'm going to email Tanner Crook to tell him that I'm not submitting my assignment, but just more about consideration on all ends. And so that's kind of the way I like to run it. So if you do know you have something coming up, just shoot me a note and say, hey, I have this big thing this week. I might be turning in my assignment a little late. Is that okay? And my answer is always going to be yes, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of how I like to run it. I'm super lenient. If you run into any issues, if you have any quiz questions that you think are faulty or whatever, just feel free to let me know, and I'll make sure it's all fair and good. So we went through a lot of that last term because it was a new course, so there was obviously some mistakes that I think are for the most part cleared up. But if you run across anything like that, just let me know. All right. Well, I've kept you long enough. Like I said, no one said anything yet, but I've also been rambling on. Does anyone else have any other questions or concerns? All right. It's pretty quiet.
Thank you for your help.
Yeah, no problem. And just so you know, just for next week and future weeks, like we're going to start doing some more dives into the actual content. And also I'm going to be I'm also going to try to do some work to kind of get your brain working on some final project options. So next week, if you're thinking, should I go to that or not, just know that's kind of what we're going to be doing. And yeah, I hope everyone has a great week. If anything comes up again, join the teams and shoot a note to the general chat or direct message myself. And yeah, hope you all have a good week and hopefully it goes smoothly.
See ya.